Hello artists! For this week's assignment, we're going to be drawing a scarecrow in a field. Our picture is a landscape, meaning it is a drawing of an outside scene, and we're going to use the parts of a landscape, the foreground in the front, the middle ground in the middle, and the background in the back in our drawing. We're also going to show how when something is closer to the front, it is bigger, and as it goes further away in our picture, it gets smaller. The change in size shows distance in our work. For this week's lesson, you need a piece of white drawing paper. Any size will do. You need a pencil with an eraser in case you make a mistake. If you would like to trace your drawing, you can get a black crayon or marker. And for coloring, you can choose what materials you want to use. Crayons, markers, a little bit of both, or of course you can always use colored pencils too. Let's get started on our scarecrow drawings. The first thing we should do before we start our drawing is determine how we want to hold our picture. You can decide to hold it vertical, straight up and down, or horizontal across. Either way will work for this drawing. I do believe that horizontal across is the best because it'll give you the most space to work with. So you turn your paper the way you want it to be. I'm going to draw with a marker so everyone can see. You should definitely draw with a pencil so you can erase if you make a mistake and need to try again. Now we're going to divide our paper up into 3 parts. There's 3 parts to a landscape: the front, the middle, and the back, also known as the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. Most drawings, not just landscapes, can be divided into those 3 parts. When you are working on the drawing, you always start with the foreground or the front first, and then you work your way backwards. In the foreground or the front is the biggest part of your picture. The objects that you draw in the front are closest to you, so you draw them the biggest. As we get farther away, the things in your drawing or the objects in your drawing become smaller and smaller. The smaller we draw, the further away it's supposed to be. That shows distance in your work of art. It mimics the way we see things in real life. The further away something is from us, the smaller it is and the harder it is to see. The closer it is to us, the bigger it is and the more detailed the picture looks. So we're going to start with the scarecrow in the foreground or the front first. Now I don't want to put my scarecrow right in the middle. I'm going to move mine to the side a little bit because I know that in the middle ground, the center of my paper, I'm going to draw some fields. And I think it might be cool to see the fields a little bit more on the side, so I'm going to move my scarecrow over. You can choose what part of your front that you want the scarecrow to be in. I'm going to go to the edge. Now, all the steps that I'm going to use is in the PowerPoint attached to your assignment. So you can use this video and go through it step by step, and you can also use the PowerPoint that has pictures of each step to help you out. In that PowerPoint, you'll notice that there is an idea sheet for the scarecrow. And in each column, there is a different part of the scarecrow that you get to choose and mix and match how you want to put it together and design your scarecrow's look. There's the face, the nose, the eyes, the mouth, the hat, and the body. This is to help get you started. You simply would pick one from each column, put them together, and you've got your scarecrow's look. So I'm going to start with the face of my scarecrow, and I'm going to make mine, I think, this U shape or the curve up top. So I'm going to go to the side of my paper in the front, and I'm going to make a U for my scarecrow's head. Notice that it is a decent size because the scarecrow is in the front of my picture and it is the biggest part. I'm going to pick the triangle nose, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to pick the eyes that have the eyelids, 1, 2, and I'm going to pick the mouth that is kind of wavy with the stitch marks. And I'm going to pick the hat that is a little bit more rounded, so it has the curved bottom and top. It has a band in the middle and the curve up top. And I think I'm gonna pick the body that has the overalls. Now, no matter what body you choose or what clothes you choose, they all pretty much start the same way. They go from the head out on both sides, down on the side of the arms as if I was making a rectangle, and it goes straight to the bottom of the page. We're not seeing the whole body of our scarecrow because it is up close and it is bigger. So it's going to be cropped, meaning you won't see the whole part of it, just half of it. And I'm going to now go back and add that collar and the overall arms and the little buttons. Okay, so I went through the columns and mixed and matched to get the basic design of my scarecrow. Now I can go back and add some of my own details. So I think I'm gonna put the straw at the edge of the arms, almost like hands. And again, it's just a zigzag, not too hard to do. I'm gonna put some straw underneath the scarecrow's hat. Could even make it a little bit longer. I think I'm gonna make it look like a straw hat. So I'm gonna add those crisscross lines. Right, and I think I'm gonna put a little circle for the cheeks. So once you have all of the basics together for your scarecrow, you can absolutely add some of your own ideas. Maybe some designs on the clothes, maybe a flower with the hat, maybe a little crow on his arm, since he is a scarecrow, and his job is to scare away the birds. Right, a little triangle. Could do that too. Remember, this is the foreground, the front, the biggest part of my picture. So even the bird is a little bit bigger than it would be if it was supposed to be far away, flying in the sky. Remember, this handout with all the ideas is in the PowerPoint, so you could just put it up on your computer and you can use it to mix and match, okay? Or you can stop the video right now and freeze the screen so that you can see all of the choices. Okay. So the foreground, the front of my picture is done. Now it's time to move to the middle ground. In the middle ground, we're going to make a field because the scarecrow is on a field in a farm. So I'm going to start from the corner and we're going to use curved lines to make it look like the rolling hills of the farm fields. So I'm going to go right behind the scarecrow, starting at the edge. I'm going to stop if I hit it. I'm going to pick up where I leave off. Remember, we can't draw through things, so we stop when we hit something. We pick up where we leave off. That's 1. And I'm going to go again. That's 2. Now I have room for about 2, but if you wanted to add another one, maybe even further away, you can add some more smaller hills in the background. It's up to you. Now, to give these hills more details to make them look like the fields of a farm, we can add some different designs to almost make it look like the crops are growing in the field. So maybe this one, it's like rows of corn. So if I want to make it look like it's rows of corn from far away, I'm just going to use some stripes to make it look like the crops are growing in a row. And when I color it later on, I can color them different colors. Remember, I stopped when I hit the scarecrow, and I'm picking up where I leave off. There we go. Maybe in the background, far away, these hills are just grassy hills, so I'm just going to make these little zigzag lines to give it the texture that grass is growing on these hills. Now, in this other hill of my field, I could maybe put an actual crop that's growing. So maybe I want to make pumpkins, or I could pick something else that is growing like corn, but I'm going to make pumpkins for mine. Now, pumpkins, because they are supposed to be further away in my picture, they shouldn't be too big. So I would make mine pretty small, and you can make pumpkins that are just like the circle with the little stem and maybe a vine, or you can do the pumpkins where we start with the oval and the curve on both sides. You guys did pumpkins last week, so you should remember how to make them. Notice they're pretty small because I'm getting further away in my picture, and they shouldn't be the same size as my scarecrow. We have to pay attention to size when we draw because that shows distance in our work. Now, back here is how they get even further and further away. So if you wanted to be really true to your size, these would be super tiny. Like they're farthest away from the front. You have to think of it almost as if you've got bigger in the front, you've got medium in the middle, and you've got real small in the background far away. So there's some pumpkins growing on the fields, and you can give them vines, leaves if you wanted. It's up to you. Just remember, they should not be the same size as your scarecrow. So I have the front, the scarecrow in the foreground. I have the fields in the middle ground. I'm now going to make the farm and the sky in the background. So you need to pick whichever spot is the best for you to put your farmhouse. I have the most room over here, so I'm going to put the farm on this side. And we're going to start the farm. Again, remember, it's in the background, so it should not be the same size as the scarecrow. It should be kind of small. I'm going to start with a square and add a triangle roof. And I'm going to make my farm look 3D, a form instead of a shape. Remember, a form is a three-dimensional shape. And I'm going to do that by adding a couple of lines. So I'm going to go across once and twice. I'm going to connect that on an angle for the side of the roof. And I'm going to come down till it touches the ground. I can add a little door, maybe a window if you want. And I'm going to make one of the silos or the towers that by the farm that keeps the wheat and the grains in. So I'm going to make a rectangle and I'm going to make a curve. And I like to add some little detail lines to my farm. So you have your foreground is your scarecrow in the front, your fields or your crops in the middle ground in the center, and your farmhouse in the background. Remember, it should be small because it's further away. Now you could also add some extra details in the background if you wanted to make trees. Remember, they're just tiny because they're in the distance. Maybe you wanted to make a fence. You could put a little fence that goes in your picture. Again, remember, it's small because it's further away. All right, here's a fence. It's up to you. You could also add details to the sky. Maybe you want to put a sun. Again, not too big because it's further away. Maybe you want to make a sunset. Maybe you want to make clouds. It's up to you. Just remember to change the size to show distance in your picture. They should not be as big as the scarecrow in the front. Okay, it's up to you. When you are finished with your drawing and you've added all the details you want to your picture, you get to color your picture in with the materials of your choice. I used crayons and markers for mine. I used the markers to outline my picture, and I used the crayons to color it in. I changed the stripes off from yellow to green so that it looked like the corn in the field that it was showing from far away. Okay? And I just changed some of the greens so that they all weren't the same color when I was coloring in the trees and the crops and all the leaves and vines and things like that. Take your time when you're coloring. Plan out your colors and how you want to use them before you begin. No rush. Okay? Remember, you can stop this video as much as you need to catch up with the steps. You can also use the PowerPoint and the images in the PowerPoint attached to the assignment to help you with each part of the project. The worksheet that has all those ideas for your scarecrow is attached to the PowerPoint as well. Take your time with your work, and I cannot wait to see what your pictures look like when they're done.